You know, in most online games, the rules are pretty straightforward, right? Higher level equals more power. Simple. But what if I told you there's a character build out there that just completely throws that rulebook out the window? A build that looks like an absolute beginner but hits with the force of a final boss. Yeah, get ready, because we're about to dive into one of the wildest, most radical builds in all of old school RuneScape. So you're probably asking, how is that even possible? I mean, how can a character that seems like, on paper, an easy win be packing the kind of firepower that can absolutely steamroll experienced players? Well, it all comes down to a really deliberate, almost surgical strategy of extreme specialization. And the secret sauce here is the concept of the pure. This is a character that is laser focused on maximizing one thing, usually damage, at the total expense of everything else. It is the definition of high risk, high reward. It creates a true glass cannon, and honestly, for a lot of players, that thrill, that feeling of being right on the edge, is the entire point. All right, so let's start breaking down this whole deception. We're going to dig into exactly why and how a seemingly harmless, mid-tier level 64 character can become one of the most terrifying opponents you could ever run into in a PvP fight. So, what is a pure? Well, think of it as a character built with one single ruthless goal: to keep that main combat level as low as humanly possible. By deciding to never train a skill like, say, defense, you can pour all that experience into your offensive stats, all while looking like you belong in a much lower weight class. This lets you game the system, really, setting you up for fights where you have a massive hidden advantage. And this just perfectly sums up the whole strategy, doesn't it? Your opponent looks at your low combat level and thinks, oh, this is going to be easy. They drop their guard, they get a little cocky, and in that split second of underestimation, bam, you unleash just catastrophic damage. They literally don't see it coming until it's way, way too late. It's a psychological win before the first hit even lands. Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's look at the numbers and see how this thing is actually engineered. Because this isn't random at all. Every single stat point is meticulously planned out to create this incredibly powerful yet incredibly fragile character. First up, the number everyone sees. Combat level 64. Honestly, it's low enough to be completely unassuming. It puts you smack in the middle of a PvP bracket where opponents are just not ready for the kind of raw power you're about to bring. This number right here, this is the foundation of the whole trick. And next. This is the engine of the whole build. Strength, maxed out completely at 99. This is where all that insane power comes from. While other players at this combat level have, balanced stats, this build has the highest possible melee damage output in the entire game. And here it is. Here is the absolutely wild trade-off. The defense level is kept at 1. It is never, ever trained. This is the single biggest reason that combat level stays so low. But it also means you can't wear any decent armor, making you unbelievably vulnerable. You hit like a runaway freight train, but you can get taken down just as fast. A true glass cannon. So here it is, the full blueprint. You've got 99 strength for that peak damage. Attack and defense are totally frozen at level 1 to keep that combat level down. But look at this. Hit points are maxed at 99, which gives you this surprisingly huge health pool to soak up damage. Then you've got Prayer, leveled to exactly 52 for one very, very important ability. And even ranged and magic are capped at a precise level, 68, just to give you options without pushing that combat level over the edge. It's a beautiful example of min-maxing. Now, with stats this specialized, you can't just pick up any old weapon. Nah. This build needs a very specific set of gear, all designed to maximize that one overwhelming advantage, pure, unadulterated damage output. At the heart of it all is the Obsidian combo. The Obsidian Maul is the perfect weapon because it only requires one attack. Then you pair it with the full Obsidian armor set, and bam, you get a 10% damage and accuracy boost. And then, for the cherry on top, you add the Berserker necklace for another 20% strength bonus. Altogether, these pieces create an absolutely devastating level of damage from a single hit. So, while that Obsidian Maul is for your consistent, heavy hits, the real tactical weapons are the big, heavy warhammers, like the Dragon or Statius's Warhammer. They also don't have an attack level requirement, which is key. And their special attacks, they don't just do damage. Oh no, they shred an opponent's defense stat, making them even more vulnerable to every single attack that follows. And hey, remember that 52 prayer we talked about? Well, this is why it's so important. It unlocks Smite. When Smite is active, every successful hit you land actually drains your opponent's prayer points. So you're not just hitting their health, you're systematically dismantling their ability to use their own defensive prayers. Once their prayer hits 0, they are a sitting duck. So, how does all this come together in an actual fight? Let's walk through the playbook and see how these crazy stats translate into a step-by-step path to victory. It's really a 3-phase assault. First, you open up with a massive burst of damage from a special attack, just to put on immediate pressure. Then you flip on Smite, and you just start this relentless attack on both their health and their prayer. And all the while, your 99 hit points lets you absorb way more punishment than they expect, letting you outlast them in a war of attrition they never saw coming. But of course, no build is invincible. The biggest weakness here is something called kiting. That's when an opponent just runs away and attacks you from a distance. And since you're a melee build, you can't hit back. The counter? You guessed it, a ranged switch. Players will carry a magic short bow just to fight back. But that's a huge trade-off. That bow takes up precious inventory space that could be used for food or potions. It's a constant strategic headache. So, after all that, what's the final verdict on this extreme build? Well, it truly is the perfect definition of a glass cannon. It's capable of absolutely shattering opponents, but it's just as easily shattered itself. Let's break it down one last time. The strengths are pretty clear: shocking burst damage, a deceptively low combat level, and it's incredible at crippling opponents by draining their prayer. But the weaknesses are just as glaring. With 0 defense, you are a massive target. Your weapon choices are pretty predictable, and any smart, experienced player knows exactly how to beat you. Just keep their distance. And this quote from the source material just captures the magic of the build perfectly. At combat level 64, you carry the firepower of an endgame character hidden behind the facade of a beginner account. I mean, that's it, right there. It's all about hiding overwhelming power in plain sight and using player psychology to get a huge advantage before the fight even starts. And that really leaves us with a fascinating question that goes way beyond just this one game. Where does true strategic advantage really come from? Is it in having balanced strength, being versatile and ready for anything? Or is it found in the radical risk of sacrificing everything else for focused, overwhelming, absolute perfection in one single area? Something to think about.